I never thought I'd be the kind of fool who'd get conned at 67 years old, but my 15-year-old grandson saved me from losing everything I'd worked for my whole life. It was a Tuesday in late September, raining the way it only rains in Portland, that slow, steady drizzle that gets into your bones. And I was sitting at the kitchen counter signing the final papers on the sale of my house. My phone buzzed on the granite next to my coffee. The message was from Caleb. "Grandpa, please stop. Don't sign anything today. I'm walking out of class right now. I found things about Vivian. You need to see them before you do anything. Don't tell her I texted you." I sat there with the pen in my hand and read it 3 times. Vivian, my fiancée of 2 years, the woman I was supposed to marry in 11 days, was upstairs taking a long shower and humming some song I didn't recognize. The realtor was on her way over with the buyer's representative. I had already shaken hands with the man who was buying my house, a developer named Holt who wanted to knock it down and put up 2 skinny modern things on the lot. I told myself it was time. The house was too big for one man and a woman who didn't grow up in it. Vivian wanted us to start fresh in a condo down by the river, somewhere without ghosts, as she put it. My hand started shaking. Not a tremor like the kind you get when you're old. A real shake. The kind I used to see in suspects when they realized I wasn't buying their story. "Where are you?" I typed. "Coffee shop on Burnside. The one by the bookstore. Please come now. I'll explain everything." I looked up at the ceiling. I could hear the water running upstairs. I could hear Vivian humming. I put the pen down. "My name is Wendell Marsh. I'm 67 years old. I spent 41 years as an investigator, the first 19 with the Portland Police Bureau, and the last 22 running my own private firm specializing in financial fraud, mostly working for insurance companies and the occasional law firm. I retired 3 years ago. I've interviewed thousands of liars in my life. I've sat across the table for men who killed their wives and women who poisoned their husbands, and I've read every micro-expression in the book. And somehow, at 67 years old, in the kitchen where my late wife and I raised 3 children, I was about to sign away the only thing I had left of her, because a woman I'd known for 31 months told me it was time to let go. Let me back up. My wife Eleanor died 4 years ago, pancreatic cancer. It took her in 9 weeks from the day they found it. We had been married for 38 years. She was a kindergarten teacher for most of that time, and she was the kindest person I have ever known. She balanced me out. I came home full of bile from work, dead bodies and bank statements and ugly divorces. And she would put a plate of meatloaf in front of me and ask about the weather, and somehow that was enough to put me back together. When she died, I didn't know how to be a person anymore. My daughter Annabeth and her husband moved closer to help. My 2 sons called every week. My grandson Caleb, who was 11 at the time and lived 10 minutes away with Annabeth, started coming over every Saturday to mow my lawn and stay for lunch. I was grateful for them. I really was. But there's a kind of loneliness that comes after 50 years of sleeping next to the same person that other people can't fill. You wake up at 3 in the morning and the bed is cold on one side, and you cannot remember why you're still here. About a year and a half after Eleanor died, my friend from church kept telling me about a website for widowed people over 60. I resisted for months. Then one night, after a particularly bad afternoon where I'd found one of Eleanor's hairs still stuck in the bathroom drain and just stood there crying like a little kid, I made a profile. Within 2 weeks, I matched with Vivian Asherton. She said she was a retired interior designer from Sacramento, widowed 5 years, no children. Her profile pictures showed a striking woman with silver hair cut to her chin and the kind of cheekbones that made you want to look twice. She wrote me a long message that mentioned a book I'd listed as my favorite. She quoted a passage from it. She said her late husband had loved the same book. We talked on the phone for 3 hours that first night. By the 3rd date, she was crying about her husband, and I was crying about Eleanor, and we held each other in the parking lot of a wine bar in Lake Oswego, like 2 shipwrecked people. 6 months later, she moved into my house. A year after that, I asked her to marry me, and she said yes before I'd even gotten the ring all the way out of the box. My daughter Annabeth never warmed up to her. She was polite. She came to dinners. She brought wine. But she never relaxed around Vivian. I remember Annabeth pulling me aside in the driveway after Christmas dinner 2 years ago and saying, "Dad, something feels off. I can't say what it is. Please just go slow." I told her she was being protective of her mother's memory. I told her Eleanor would want me to be happy. I said it with that particular condescension a father uses with a daughter when he thinks he knows better, and I saw the hurt flash across her face, and I did not apologize. My grandson Caleb, though, he was different. Caleb is 15 now, 15 and gawky and quiet, the kind of kid who reads 3 books a week and would rather take apart a computer than play sports. He started watching Vivian. I noticed it, but I didn't think much of it. He'd come over, and he'd just sit in the corner of the living room with a book, and his eyes would lift up every time she walked through. He almost never spoke to her directly. When he did, his answers were one word. Vivian tried with him. She really seemed to. She bought him gifts. A leather journal, a telescope. He thanked her politely and never used either one. I picked up my truck keys off the hook by the back door. I called up the stairs that I needed to run to the hardware store for 10 minutes. I'd be back before the realtor got there. Vivian called something back that I couldn't quite make out. I left. The drive to the coffee shop on Burnside took 18 minutes through the rain. Caleb was sitting at a corner table in the back, his backpack on his lap, his eyes red. He had not been crying right then, but he had been crying. Right then, but he had been crying. He's not the kind of kid who cries easily. He stood up when he saw me, and I hugged him, and he was shaking. "Tell me," I said. He nodded. He sat down. He pulled a stack of folded papers out of his backpack along with his phone. "Grandpa," he said, "I have to tell you how I got this stuff before I show you. Because some of it isn't legal." He had my full attention. I told him to go ahead. He took a breath. "About 4 months ago, I started getting a weird feeling," he said. "Vivian would say things, and then say the opposite a week later, and not realize. Just little stuff. She told me once she was an only child and another time mentioned a brother. She said she went to UC Davis and another time said she'd never been to college. I didn't say anything because you seemed so happy. But 2 months ago, you guys came over for Aunt Annabeth's birthday and Vivian left her phone on the counter, and it buzzed and I saw the preview." He paused. "The preview said, 'Daniel says wire transfers anything over $50K. Make sure he sells the house first.' And it was from somebody saved as M." My stomach turned over. "M," I said. "Yeah." So I started watching. I'm sorry, Grandpa. I know I shouldn't have. But I started watching. I waited for chances when she left her laptop open or her phone unlocked. And then, about 3 weeks ago, she came over to babysit because Mom and Dad had that anniversary trip. She fell asleep on the couch around 11, and her phone was right there on the coffee table. I took it into the bathroom. I went through everything. I took screenshots of all of it. He slid his phone across the table to me. The first screenshot was a long text conversation with M. The messages went back almost a year. The most recent ones, from 2 weeks ago, made my throat close up. Vivian had written, "The old man finally signed on the house. Listing goes up next week. Should clear about $650 after fees. Then I'll move the brokerage account in October once we're married, and the joint signatory thing kicks in. He's signing whatever I give him. I just have to hold it together 11 more days." M had written back, "Make sure the prenup waives the brokerage. Did you get him to sign?" Vivian, already done. His lawyer caught it, but I cried about it and he overruled the lawyer. Have I mentioned how much I hate that woman from California? Annabeth. Annabeth. Man. Just a few more weeks, baby. Then we're done with the whole Marsh family forever. Vivian, I cannot wait to drop the Widow Act. He smells like an old man, and he wants to cuddle every night like he's some kind of golden retriever. I read it twice. Then I read it a third time, because my eyes kept jumping around and I couldn't believe what I was looking at. Caleb was watching me. "I'm sorry, Grandpa," he said quietly. "There's more." There were emails. He'd taken pictures of her laptop screen, dozens of them. The emails went back 4 years, well before she'd ever heard of me. She was corresponding with someone named Marcus Daniel Asherton, who I had thought was her deceased husband. Marcus was not deceased. Marcus was very much alive and living in San Diego. They were married. They had been married for 16 years. The emails were affectionate. They were planning. They referred to her work. Her work was me. There was a spreadsheet attached to one of the emails. It had columns: name, age, asset value, marital status, vulnerability score, stage. There were 6 names on the spreadsheet above mine. I scrolled down. Mine was the 7th. My estimated asset value was listed at $1.9 million. My vulnerability score was 9 out of 10. There was a note in the column that said, recently bereaved, isolated, 3 adult children. But only the daughter is engaged. Sentimental about deceased wife. Has signing authority on late wife's brokerage and unwilling to involve lawyer due to grief. I put the phone down. I had to put the phone down because my hands were shaking too much to hold it. 41 years of investigating people, and I'd been profiled like a mark by a woman who had memorized passages from my favorite book the week she set me up. Caleb was crying again. He was trying not to. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner, he said. I wanted to be sure. I didn't want to be wrong because I knew you'd be heartbroken. And Mom said you were finally happy again, and I didn't want to be the kid who ruined it if I was wrong. You weren't wrong, I said. My voice came out scraped raw. You weren't wrong, son. You did exactly the right thing. He nodded and wiped his face with his sleeve. I sat there for a long minute trying to think the way I used to think. The old detective brain was kicking on slowly like an engine in cold weather. I needed to slow everything down. I could not go home and confront her. If I did, she would run. Marcus would empty whatever they'd already gotten access to, and they'd both be in the wind by morning. I needed evidence that would hold up. I needed to catch her in the act of taking the money, not just talking about it. I needed help. There's a man I haven't spoken to in 11 years. His name is Jasper Okoro. When he was 19 years old, I caught him trying to siphon gas out of my truck in my own driveway. He had a baby face and an empty stomach and a story about a mother who'd kicked him out for being gay. I should have called the police. Instead, I made him eggs in my kitchen at 1 in the morning, and I told him if he wanted to come back the next Saturday and clean out my garage for $40, I'd have the work ready for him. He came back. He came back every Saturday for 2 years. Eleanor mothered him. We got him into a community college program. We helped him find a place. He moved to Seattle eventually. Last I heard, 10 years ago at Eleanor's funeral, he'd started a security consulting business focused on small business cybersecurity. He'd hugged me at the funeral and said, "Mr. Marsh, you call me if you ever need anything. Anything at all." I had not called him. I called him now from the parking lot of the coffee shop with Caleb sitting next to me in the truck. He picked up on the second ring. "Mr. Marsh," he said, like he'd been waiting 11 years for me to call. "Jasper," I said, "I need help. Tell me where and when." I told him the basic outline. He didn't interrupt. When I was done, he said, "Are you safe right now? Can you go home and act normal for 48 hours? "I think so." "Good. I'm driving down tonight. I'll be there by midnight. Don't put anything in writing. Don't call from your home phone. Don't change your daily routine. Buy yourself a cheap, prepaid phone at a gas station and only use that to talk to me." He paused. "Mr. Marsh?" "Yeah. I'm so sorry. We'll get her." I drove Caleb back to school. He'd missed half his classes and he was going to have to come up with a story for his mother. I told him I'd call Annabeth that night. I told him not to say a word to anyone until I gave him the go-ahead. He nodded. Before he got out of the truck, he turned and looked at me and said, "Grandpa, are you going to be okay?" I said, "I'm going to be okay because of you." He nodded once and walked into the school. I sat in the parking lot for 10 minutes and let myself cry. Then I wiped my face and I drove home. Vivian was in the kitchen when I walked in. She had set out the closing documents on the table. "There you are," she said. She crossed the kitchen and kissed me on the mouth. I felt my stomach roll. She smelled like the perfume I'd bought her for our first anniversary. "The realtor's stuck in traffic," she said. "She'll be here in 20. Are you nervous? It's a big day." I made myself smile. "Just feels real now," I said. She laughed and squeezed my arm. "I know, but it's a fresh start. That's all we wanted." Right. The realtor came. I signed the papers. Every signature felt like I was sawing off pieces of myself. Vivian sat next to me and beamed and made small talk about the condo we were going to look at on Friday. I went through the motions. After the realtor left, Vivian suggested we go out for dinner. I told her I was tired and wanted to lie down. She frowned and then pivoted into wifely concern, asking if I was feeling okay. Did I want her to make tea? I said no. I said I just needed a nap. I went upstairs and laid down on the bed Eleanor and I had bought together in 1987, and I stared at the ceiling. Around 11 that night, I told Vivian I needed to go pick up something from a friend who was dropping off some old fishing gear. She didn't question it. I drove to a 24-hour diner near the airport. Jasper was already there. He was 30 now, broad across the shoulders, with a beard and tired eyes. He stood up when he saw me and hugged me hard. He'd brought his laptop. I showed him everything Caleb had sent me. He worked in silence for an hour, copying everything, time-stamping it, cross-referencing names and email addresses. He pulled up public records in 3 states. By 2 in the morning, he had a file thicker than my arm. "Mr. Marsh," he said. "This woman is good. Her real name is Adriana Pacheco. She and her husband, Marcus, have been running long-form widower cons for at least 12 years. I count 9 confirmed victims before you. Total take, somewhere north of $4 million across all of them. They specialize in older men with adult children in the picture, which is risky for them, but their angle is the dead wife. They study the dead wife. They become her, slowly. The grief makes the mark suggestible. They've never been arrested. They've never even been formally investigated by anyone besides one PI in Arizona who got close and got run off by a fake lawsuit." I sat with that for a moment. I felt sick. "Why hasn't anyone caught them?" I asked. "Because the victims won't talk," he said. "Shame keeps them quiet, and the cons are technically legal. She gets the assets transferred during the engagement or right after the marriage. Joint accounts, signed authority, beneficiary changes. Nothing she does is theft on paper. It's psychological manipulation. By the time the mark realizes she's married, she's a spouse, and the courts treat it as a divorce, not a fraud. She walks away with half or more and disappears." I thought about those 9 men. Some of them were probably dead by now. Some of them probably blamed themselves so completely they never told a soul. I thought about how I had been 1 signature and 11 days away from being number 10. "We need a trap," I said. "I know," Jasper said. "I have an idea." His plan was this. The house sale was already done. The money would land in my bank account in a few days. Vivian was expecting us to deposit it into a new joint account we'd opened the previous month, the one she'd insisted we needed for our future. Jasper would work with my old colleague at the bureau, a woman named Tess, who now ran financial crimes out of the Portland field office of the FBI, to flag the joint account and set up surveillance on any movement. When Vivian tried to wire money out, we'd have her on attempted wire fraud. The brokerage account from Eleanor's estate was the bigger one. She was planning to get me to sign over signing authority on that within 2 weeks of the wedding. Jasper said we needed to dangle that. We needed her to make a move on it. The catch was, I had to keep playing the loving fiancé for almost 2 more weeks. I had to walk her down the aisle in 11 days. I had to mean it with my face and lie with my whole body. I called Annabeth the next morning from a payphone outside a 7-Eleven. I told her everything. She started crying in the middle of it, and I had to stop and let her get herself together. When she could talk again, she said, "Dad, I'm so sorry. I should have pushed harder. I should have pushed harder. I should have." "No," I said. No, sweetheart, I should have listened. I'm sorry I didn't listen to you. She was quiet for a long time. Caleb did this, she said. Caleb. Caleb did this, I said. Then she really cried. I went home. Vivian made breakfast. She poured me coffee. She kissed the top of my head. I told her I was going to call my lawyer about updating the will after the wedding. Her eyes lit up. Oh, honey, that's so sensible, she said. Maybe we can do my will too at the same time. I smiled at her. That sounds great, I said. The next 10 days were the longest of my life. I went to the rehearsal dinner. I tasted cake samples. I picked out a tie. Vivian made me dance with her in the living room one night to a song that had been playing the night I told her I loved her, and I danced with her, and I held her, and I felt nothing but cold revulsion and the strangest grief, because the woman I thought I'd been holding had never existed in the first place. Jasper worked behind the scenes. Tess at the FBI was extraordinary. She had 3 other men come forward within the first week, 2 of them from the spreadsheet, both of whom had been cleaned out years ago and had spent the time since drinking themselves toward the grave in silence. She got warrants. She got a wire on the joint account. She tracked Marcus Pacheco, Vivian's actual husband, to a rental house in La Jolla. The wedding day came. I want to tell you that I called it off in some grand moment. I didn't. The wedding was actually the trap. We needed Vivian to file the marriage license and become my legal spouse, so she'd have access to attempt the brokerage transfer. We needed her to feel safe. I stood at the front of a small chapel in Selwood with my brother as my witness and my daughter sitting in the front row, holding my grandson's hand and pretending to be happy. Vivian walked down the aisle in a champagne-colored dress, and she was beautiful, and she was a stranger. And I said the words I had said to Eleanor 39 years earlier, and they tasted like rust in my mouth. We had a small reception. She fed me cake. I smiled. We went home that night, and she fell asleep wrapped around me, and I lay awake for 6 hours staring at the ceiling. The next morning, Tuesday, Vivian made coffee and announced she was going downtown to handle some paperwork. I knew where she was really going, the credit union, where she would try to add herself as a signatory on the brokerage account I had told her about 2 months earlier. She had the documents I'd left on the desk in my study, conveniently, 2 nights ago. The documents were real. The brokerage account was real. The brokerage account was real. What she didn't know was that the night before our wedding, my lawyer and I had quietly moved every asset from that account into a new trust under my daughter's and grandson's names, with me as the trustee and a single beneficiary clause that excluded any spouse. The account she was about to try to access had exactly $200 in it and a flag on every transaction. She left at 10. At 10:47, my phone rang. Tess. We've got her, Tess said. She walked into the credit union, presented the forms, presented the marriage license, and attempted to authorize a wire transfer of $1.6 million to a holding account in Belize. The transfer was declined, and she's currently sitting at the manager's desk being told there's a problem with the paperwork. We have agents at the back door. Marcus was picked up in La Jolla 40 minutes ago. He's already talking. Thank you, I said. Mr. Marsh? Tess said. Yeah, we needed someone to actually press charges. You're the first one in 12 years who is going to do this. You will be doing a lot of these people a kindness. I know, I said. I drove to the credit union. I parked across the street. I sat in my truck and watched 2 FBI agents walk Adriana Pacheco out of the building in handcuffs. She saw me through the windshield. The look on her face went through 3 full emotions in 2 seconds. Surprise. Calculation. Rage. She mouthed something at me through the window. I didn't read lips. I didn't need to. I drove home. Annabeth and Caleb were waiting for me on the front porch. Annabeth ran down the steps and threw her arms around me. Caleb stood at the top of the steps and waited. I walked up to him. Thank you, I said. I held him by the shoulders. I held him a long time. I am the luckiest old man in this city, I said, because of you. The trial took 14 months. I testified. So did 3 of the other victims. So did Marcus Pacheco, who took a deal in exchange for testimony against his wife. Adriana was convicted on 22 counts of wire fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud, identity theft, and a few other things I lost track of. She got 26 years in federal prison. Marcus got 12. The full investigation eventually uncovered 13 victims across 6 states going back 19 years. Total losses were estimated at $6.1 million. They recovered about $1.3 million from offshore accounts. The rest was gone. Some of the surviving victims got partial restitution. One of them, a man named Hollis Bennett from Tucson who'd lost his daughter's college fund to Adriana 15 years ago, came to Portland for the sentencing. He hugged me in the hallway outside the courtroom, and we both stood there and cried like 2 old fools. We're still friends. We talk on the phone every couple of weeks. He has grandchildren now, too. The house. I want to clear this up. I never lost the house. The day after the arrests, I called the developer Holt and explained the situation. He'd already paid the deposit but hadn't yet closed on the full purchase. I offered to refund his deposit plus $20,000 for his trouble. He was a decent man. He took the deal. He said his condolences to me about what I'd been through. The house stayed in my name. The marriage was annulled 3 months after the arrests, on grounds of fraud. The annulment was straightforward. The judge actually looked up from the papers at one point during the hearing and said, "On the record, Mr. Marsh, you have my sincerest sympathy and the court's." I have rarely seen such a thoroughly orchestrated deception. He granted the annulment with a slammed gavel that felt like a benediction. Caleb is 17 now. He's a senior in high school. He got early acceptance to Stanford, and he's going to study computer science with a minor in criminology, which he says is a coincidence, and I do not believe him. He still comes over every Saturday. We work on projects. Last summer, we built a deck off the back of the house together. He's taller than me now. Jasper drove down from Seattle for the dedication of a bench I had put in at Eleanor's gravesite last spring. He brought his husband and their adopted daughter, who was 2.5 and who called me Grandpa Wendell within 10 minutes of meeting me. We had dinner at my house. Annabeth cooked. Caleb sat next to Jasper and asked him questions about cybersecurity for an hour, and I just watched my kitchen full of people I loved, and I thought, this is what Eleanor would have wanted. This. Not the woman with the silver hair and the rehearsed grief. This. The other survivors of Adriana and Marcus formed a kind of support group. We meet on a video call every other Sunday. There are 8 of us active members. Mostly we just listen to each other. A lot of us have had to mend things with our adult children who tried to warn us. Most of those repairs took time. Mine with Annabeth took about a year. There was a lot of apologizing on my side. She was gracious about it, but I had hurt her, and I had hurt her dead mother by letting another woman into Eleanor's house and Eleanor's kitchen and Eleanor's bed. I had to sit with that. I had to let myself feel how stupid and how lonely and how blind I had been. I had to forgive myself for being human. That took its own time. I learned some things I want to tell you. I learned that grief is not the same as readiness. Just because you're hurting doesn't mean the next person who shows up to comfort you is good for you. Sometimes the person who shows up is exactly the kind of person who waits for grieving people the way a vulture waits for the wounded. I learned that loneliness lies to you. It tells you that this person, this one right here, is the answer, even when something deep in your gut is whispering otherwise. I learned to listen to the people who have known me my whole life. They see me clearly. They love me without an agenda. When they say slow down, the right answer is to slow down, even if it makes me feel patronized. I learned that a 15-year-old kid with a sharp eye and a brave heart can be wiser than a man who spent his whole career reading liars. He had no professional training. He had something better. He had love that wasn't tangled up in his own loneliness. He could see her. I couldn't. I learned that the people who love you tell you the hard truth even when it costs them. Caleb risked a relationship. He risked his mother's relationship with me. He risked his mother's relationship with me. He risked being wrong and breaking my heart. He did it anyway. That is what real love looks like. The performance kind doesn't take risks. The performance kind manages you. The real kind tells you the truth and then sits with you while you process it. I learned that I am not alone, even when I'm alone in the house. I'm not alone because of who I chose over many years to invest in. Eleanor taught me to invest in people. Jasper was an investment 20 years ago in a kid eating my eggs at 1 in the morning. Caleb is an investment 15 years ago, holding a swaddled baby and promising his mother I would always show up. Annabeth is an investment of 38 years of being her father, even when I got it wrong. These were not transactions. These were the truest things I have ever done, and every one of them came back to save me when I needed it. I think about Adriana sometimes. I think about how she studied me, how she practiced Eleanor's perfume and Eleanor's peculiar way of touching the back of my neck, how she rehearsed a dead woman in order to bury me. I should hate her. I think I did for a while. I don't anymore. I just feel sad for her. Wherever she is in a federal prison right now, she has nobody. Nobody is investing in her. Nobody will come for her when she needs them. The work she did for 12 years was the opposite of the work I did. Hers built nothing, ate everything. I have a great deal. I have a kitchen with my late wife's tile and my grandson's drawings on the fridge from when he was 8. I have a daughter who has forgiven me. I have a friend who drives down from Seattle and calls me Mr. Marsh because he can't break the habit, and I love him for it. I have 8 strangers on a video call every other Sunday who understand exactly what happened to me and don't think less of me for it. I have a deck I built with my own hands and my grandson's hands, and I sit on it in the summer with a beer and a book, and I am at peace. I am 68 now. I will probably be alive another 15 or 20 years if I'm lucky and the genes hold. I will be alone for most of those years, in the sense of not having another wife. I am not looking. I will not be on a dating site. I am done with that. If somebody comes along the way Eleanor came along when I was 23 and stupid in a coffee shop in Eugene, then I'll know what to do. I'll bring her to Sunday dinner at Abbott's. I'll listen to what Caleb says about her after he meets her. I will not move fast. I will not get engaged in 14 months. I will not let anybody change my will or my accounts or my house. If she's real, she'll wait. The fake ones don't wait. The fake ones rush you because the rush is the whole con. They need you off balance and grateful. A real person doesn't need you off balance. A real person can sit across a table from you and let the silence be silence. So that's my story. I'm telling you this because somewhere out there, there's a man my age sitting in a kitchen that used to belong to his wife, talking to a woman on the phone who knows every passage of his favorite book. He has a child or a grandchild who has tried to say something and been brushed off. He has a gut feeling at 3 in the morning he keeps ignoring. If that's you, please listen to me. Pick up the phone. Call the kid who tried to talk to you. Tell them you're sorry. Ask them what they were trying to say. And then sit there and shut up and listen, even if it costs you the comfort you've been holding on to for dear life. The comfort isn't real. They are. Where are you watching from tonight? And who is the person in your life who would send you that text? Because whoever they are, call them this week. Tell them you love them. Tell them you'll listen. That's the only thing that saves us in the end. Not our wits, not our training, not our money. The people who know us and love us and tell us the truth. That's it. That's the whole thing. My grandson saved me. A 15-year-old boy with a backpack and a stack of screenshots saved my life. I will spend the rest of my days trying to be worthy of that. I've thought a lot, in the years since all this happened, about why I almost lost everything. It wasn't bad luck. It wasn't even Vivian, not really. She was just the consequence that arrived when the seeds were already in the ground. The seeds were mine. I had spent 4 years after Eleanor died refusing to do the hard interior work of being a widowed man. I wanted shortcut comfort. I wanted somebody to fill the cold side of the bed, without me having to first learn how to lie there in it alone. That impatience is what created the opening Vivian walked through. She didn't break into my life. I left the door wide open and put a sign on the porch. 41 years of investigating people taught me to read strangers. It did not teach me to read myself. That's the harder skill, and I had skipped it. A man who knows his own loneliness can recognize when somebody is exploiting it. A man who refuses to look at his loneliness will mistake the exploitation for love every single time. So when I tell you the lesson, I want to say it plainly. Know yourself first. Sit with the grief, the boredom, the fear of being old and alone. Don't medicate it with a new person. The new person will become a mirror of whatever you couldn't face. And if what you couldn't face is desperation, the mirror that shows up will be a predator. The second thing I learned has to do with my grandson, Caleb. That boy had no special talent. He had character. He noticed inconsistencies because he was paying attention, and he was paying attention because he loved me. He had the courage to risk our relationship to tell me the truth. That is what wisdom and moral backbone look like in a 15-year-old kid, and it is what I want every person watching this to cultivate in the young people they love. Teach them to trust their instincts. Teach them that being right is more important than being polite when someone they love is in danger. The world will tell them to stay quiet. Teach them to speak. And the third thing, the one I had to learn last and hardest, is that nobody is coming to save you from the work of becoming a better person. Not Eleanor's memory. Not a new wife. Not your kids. You have to do it. You have to look at yourself honestly. You have to forgive yourself for being human. And then you have to get up the next morning and try to be a little wiser, a little kinder, a little less easily flattered than you were the day before. That's the whole project of getting old well. It's not romantic. It's not a fresh start in a condo by the river. It's just a slow daily decision to be worthy of the people who love you. Caleb saved me. The least I can do, with the time I have left, is become the kind of grandfather worth saving.